my frigging butt, you backstabbing punks! Chug my dump truck, you stinky wimps! Beep, beep, garbage butt backing up!
You could finally stop calling GameStop asking to pre-order the new Battletoads, because Battletoads 2020, as I'm calling it, is finally here for the Xbox. And I played through the entire game in a live stream the other night, and having slept on it and experienced it and going back and playing some of the stages, I wanted to just share my thoughts on this game. I was not one of those people who initially were like, I don't like the aesthetic, this game is garbage, when it was first shown a while back. I was like, you know what? It's fine. Let me play this game. Let me get my own impressions, right? So I really wasn't put off by the art style. I know a lot of people are, and that's fine. And remember, these are my opinions, my feelings, my thoughts, not to hinder your enjoyment of the game if you do enjoy it. But yeah, there's a lot of mixed emotions out there on this game. So it starts off a beat 'em up game. You're like, okay, this is Battletoads, just a little different. Very cartoony aesthetic there. Looks like it could have been a show on Netflix or Cartoon Network or something, right? And there's a lot of cutscenes. And, you know, I want to talk about some of the things I liked, some of the things I didn't like, things that I think they could have done better or improved upon, right? So, yeah, there's a lot of cutscenes. And I thought the humor, for the most part, was okay. I laughed a few times. I definitely would watch a cartoon of this if it was done like this. I know a lot of people don't like the way the Dark Queen has been, you know, redrawn, or, you know, just the vision of her now. I get it. But overall, I wasn't really disappointed with the look of the game. But I was disappointed with the overall game in general. It starts out as a beat 'em up, as I said, and it does take a little getting used to with all the different, you know, controls, the combat mechanics, and, you know, there's some frustrating parts, but it's just one of those games where, for the most part, you just got to get good, right? And it is satisfying once you finally, like, get that combat system down and understand all the strategies and whatnot, and just really start getting into it. Like I said, initially it's a little frustrating, but then it just kind of all goes in together, and it feels decent to me anyway when you're, you know, in the beat 'em up stages, which is only about half of the game, because the other half of the game, they just went in a whole other direction. Now, this is where my biggest complaint comes in. There's a lot of games or mini games that are stages, and they should have just stayed as mini games, like something to distract you or just kind of give you a change of pace in between levels. But no, a lot of these mini games, they are stages. They count as stages. And some of them go on for way too long. There's some things that are decently quick but are rather pointless, like the Toad Shambo, which is fairly early in the game. You know, okay, it's rock, paper, scissors, but it was rather pointless. It could have just been one or two quick screens, but it does go on for a little bit, but it's not the worst offender by any means. Then you have other things like where you're shooting objects in the sky, you're trying to match up a sundial, you're juggling balls to the finish, to a goal, and it all feels rather cheap and looks like out of place to me. I really couldn't get into those segments. Those were like the more smaller mini game type things, and they were just really, really boring to me. Took me out of the game. Even in the beat 'em up stages, you know, there was parts that just repeated over and over again, doing the little security, you know, hacking things. Like, there's a couple variations of it. And for the most part, the ones where you had to, like, do the pipe dreams type thing, I would just stumble across, like, the more difficult looking ones, just randomly hit buttons and boom, I'm good to go. And then you would have ones where you got to kind of travel across the screen, a little digital thing. I don't know. I guess it represented hacking, getting, you know, doors unlocked and whatnot. You know, quick little minor thing, but I don't know. I think a little more variety with that kind of stuff would have been nice. But, you know, after you get through the beat 'em up stages, and like I said, you kind of, it is satisfying. You get to a point where you, like, feel good. Like, you're like, you know what? I've learned something. I've gotten good. I've figured this out. I got some strategies down. And then they just totally pull that away from you. You start going into some side-scrolling stages, a shoot 'em up stage, bullet hell stage. And those, they should have just been like quick distractions in between the beat 'em up stages. These go on for nearly half of the game, it seems like. Maybe a little less than that. You know, maybe I'm exaggerating a bit. I didn't time it out. I kind of scrolled through and looked at my stream to see how long these segments took me. But that side scrolling and that shoot 'em up, my God, they felt like horrible. They weren't fun. That was the biggest problem for me. They just were not fun. They took way too long to get through. They were frustrating and annoying. The side scrolling, you couldn't really die. It was more of a puzzle platformer type thing, moving crates around and using elevators and whatnot to trigger switches to open gates. It was not Battletoads to me. Those segments really pulled me out of it. The boss fights in the game, while not memorable, they were okay. You know, the only boss fight I really remember was the final boss. I mean, I do remember a handful of the boss fights, but they just were nothing spectacular or special. You know, there was some cheapness to some of it. The floaty controls, you know, with the beat 'em up stages and, you know, lining up the attacks and just getting things to work properly. It was a little off. It was a little off. But, you know, when you finally get through the game and you get, you know, to the end and you start playing the final act, the final few stages, and you kind of go back to some of the original stuff that was in the beginning of the game, some of the beat 'em up stages, the hoverboard stage, which I think the hoverboard stage was a nice little thing. Yeah, the perspective was different. The challenge wasn't too difficult. The final one, yeah, it kind of gets a little hectic with how fast it goes. That was fine. And then there was also that sledding stage, kind of in the mid-game. The sledding stage where you got to hit the buttons to line up to what the color of the platform is. Like, there's really no control. It was just jump, press a button to match the color of the platform that you're going to land on. And, you know, jump over enemies and obstacles and whatnot. That was a challenge. You know, it went on a little too long. Like a lot of the stuff that I didn't like, I felt like it went on for a little too long. Getting through the final end of the game, you know, kind of the final act just kind of flowed through really quick. The final boss battle was very anticlimactic. You had a quick time event that really wasn't a quick time event. The game ends that way. Just some random button presses, holding the joysticks, holding the triggers, doing that kind of thing. And there was no time. It wasn't timed. It was just like press these buttons and then press these buttons and then go on and press these buttons and you beat the game, right? That was kind of disappointing. You know, the final boss was probably the easiest boss in the entire game playing through this thing. But, you know, when I got through the whole game, fine, the aesthetic not everybody's going to like. I was fine with it. But I really wish what they would have done here was refined the beat 'em up stages and just made this a real Battletoads game, a beat 'em up game, right? And just refined that, added more to it, some power-ups, because there really wasn't any power-ups or anything. There wasn't any extra moves that you learned. I really think they could have put in like an experience system, something to refine the beat 'em up stages and just make this a beat 'em up game. I think that would have been nice, but that's not the direction they went. This game wanted to be more than what it was. It tried to be everything at once, and I don't feel like it did anything particularly well. Geez, can't speak, man. But I just don't think any of it was done that well. Like, they should have stuck to the one thing that I felt was decent compared to everything else, and that was the beat 'em up stuff. Refine that, expand upon that. That's what the game should have been. All these other little things that I'm calling mini games, but they weren't mini games. They were actual levels. Those should have been shrunk down to mini games. The side-scrolling level, the shooter level. Those should have just been quick little, you know, interludes between stages. That's what they should have been, but they weren't. They took up way too much of the time of the game. They didn't feel like Battletoads. And that's just unfortunate. You know, I was pretty harsh after playing this game last night, but in the end, like, am I going to stick to what my feelings were on it? For the most part, yes. I think I tweeted out there, I give this game a 4 out of 10. I actually, after sleeping on it, playing it a little bit more, I think I would bump that up to a 5 out of 10. Not great, not the most horrible game I've ever played. Had some potential, but it really missed the mark for me. So there you guys go. Really do appreciate you watching. With that said, I will catch y'all next time. Peace out, bye-bye, and boom. Bye.